Welcome to the MenTell Health Podcast. I'm Tim, and I invite you on my journey to talk about men's mental health. Before we begin, a brief disclaimer. I am in no shape or form a mental health professional. I'm just a man who wants, people to talk about men's mental health. He loves me not. If I had a daisy or something here, I could pin the pedals and play this game to find out if he or she loves me or not. At least that's the game we played as children. In adulthood, we quite often believe or are told that he doesn't actually love us. Because once a relationship ends, it seems like he doesn't. And this is what this episode is going to be about. Episode 14, like Valentine's Day, January the 14th. That's a happy coincidence. Well, happy. That's just a coincidence, by the way. I didn't plan it. But yeah, what I would like to talk about in this episode is how it is still a very firm held belief that men do not suffer after breakups, or that men grow cold after breakups because they don't care, or they have already moved on since they've been pre-planning this, or any other such ideas. There are films and songs and TV shows and books that portray the man as someone who, after a short or long-term relationship, is quite happy to just jump on the next wagon. I myself had conversations with a colleague who told me that in her experience, almost every man after a relationship, regardless of length, quickly jumped onto the next person. And I'm not saying that that is not what happened or that that is not true. No. But what I'm questioning is the presumption that behind those actions or behind the cold facade lies maliciousness or iciness or just lack of empathy, feelings, emotions, love, or any of such things. It is always much easier to just say, hey, well, men are the less emotional gender. Men they don't really do feelings, they do action. They fornicate their way to the next relationship, or they fornicate their way to the next over those feelings, past those feelings, through those feelings. There are films and stories and songs written about how quickly men move on, but one doesn't have to go into fiction. Just look at Google, type in why does my boy X move on so quickly, and there's a plethora of reasons told mostly by either bloggers or pseudo-psychologists or other people that have just that have recently been left or had a relationship and a big reason is that they don't love the person anymore, they don't care, they have already moved on, they only entered this relationship because at the beginning they were only sexually attracted to you, and that sexual attractiveness has basically blinded them to your character. And now that they've noticed that your character is not compatible with what they want from this person they're in a relationship with, they just move on to the next person that already is. But that doesn't make sense, because wouldn't that attractiveness be always the predominant factor, and the person they jump on to next? Because in this article that I've read, they said that the ex-partner is now happily with someone else. that fulfills all these criteria that the other person didn't fulfill besides the attractiveness. But how would that be true? Because the new relationship has also only just happened. So the attractiveness would always be the predominant factor, and men would never care about the character until they're already quite long into a relationship, and then only by chance find someone they're actually compatible with, also on an emotional and value level, which I find weird to believe, and cannot, at least for me personally, cannot confirm that that's how it went, because almost all of my relationships started with character, getting to know them, friendships first. Another idea why men move on quickly or grow cold towards their now ex-partners, this idea that, they would, if they would show that it hurts them, that it's painful, not to mention that another part is telling people that they don't even have feelings, but now they do have feelings, but they don't show it because that would mean that the other person has won, because it's a game or a competition to play where people, the person that is showing the most emotion is the person that has lost the breakup. And that's how people talk about breakups. One person always wins the breakup, one person always ends the breakup, which in itself is a not very healthy way to look at it. I mean, yes, it hurts when you are, when a person ends a relationship and if it's not amicable, but, that doesn't mean you've lost, because clearly the person has come to the idea that now this relationship for them in that form makes no sense to continue, and they're open about it instead of continuing a relationship they're not happy with. So it's a win for both, because now both of you can be happy with someone or alone in a way that is healthier and more fulfilling, despite the pain that it feels first. And it sucks, of course, a relationship that ends sucks for both parties though. So there's not really a win. And the arguments go further along those lines where it's about the man just, either wants not to show you that you've won by having feelings, or by not having any feelings, they want to make you jealous, which I guess, it's always easier to make someone seem stupid, because that's stupid. How would it make you feel jealous? Why would you be jealous? Especially if you left them and they don't have any feelings, wouldn't you be like, well, okay then, cool, so it's good. If they left you and they don't show any feelings, why would that make you jealous? Would it make you jealous because, oh, I wish I wouldn't have to deal with the pain? Fair enough, but them then not having the pain doesn't do anything for you. Would it make you jealous that, oh, I want them back because obviously they don't care? No, it doesn't. So I don't understand the logic behind it. If I'm missing something here, please comment or message me and let me know how I'm short-sighted, too short-sighted to see this. By the way, I'm physically short-sighted, so I can tell this. No, I'm not. I'm not short-sighted. I'm the opposite. I don't know what that is in English. Yes, another conclusion that goes along those same lines is that they just want to make you feel bad, which, yeah, human, emotionally speaking, if someone hurts me, my first impulse might be that I want to hurt them, but even if that's the case, there's only so much acting you can do, and then they would possibly show it to other people, but the prejudice is still that even to their friends, they just go out, party hard, or go to the gym to be, good looking for the next partner or whatever. Doesn't really support that idea, that argument. None of them actually do show what's really happened, what's really happening to men, funnily enough. And it's always interesting that we need to do research to find out what's happening to people that we have in our lives and that we could talk to. And that just, I'm not just talking about men. I mean, we also kind of sometimes appeal to need research to understand women or other groups. Instead of just talking to them. But I guess, we are curious people and we want to find out why stuff is happening in what way. And so there's been some research conducted where scientists have interviewed men during and after long-term relationships and once they've ended, and how they've dealt with. And surprise, surprise, they found out that almost every man they spoke to has suffered severely from the end of their relationships and have had a lot of pain inside of them. But they didn't show it. And that goes back to what I've been talking about in almost every episode of this podcast so far. And probably, spoiler alert, we'll do more so in the future. Why they don't show it is because we don't encourage men. We don't teach men. We don't teach boys to show their feelings. Boys, don't cry. Maybe you should make a t-shirt that says that. Well, probably already is one. And maybe would that be ironic enough? I don't know. Let me know. Anyways, we tell them don't show your emotions. Then there's a breakup. They have a lot of very negative feelings and pain, but we tell them don't show them. And then we wonder why they don't show them. I mean, it's really, really mind-boggling how that came to be. And yes, the consequences are severe for men who suffer from a breakup and are not allowed or not encouraged to show how much pain they have. And it actually tangibly leads to many of those men to fall into states of depression, anxiety, high stress, and even suicidal thoughts and suicide attempts and suicides. There is still, as I've said in the very early episodes, the majority of completed suicides is held by men. And the reasons for those are varied, but one of them is their painful feelings after a relationship that then cannot be processed in a healthy and supported way. And let's step back here, because obviously all of this starts earlier, even during a relationship. And this episode is more about the breakups, but there will be more episodes where I talk more in depth about the relationships and attachments and all those different things, hopefully with someone listening to me and with an experience. So if you're listening / watching, get in touch. All the links are in the description below or in the show notes. I'd love to hear from you. Moving on. Even in a relationship, when there are issues or when there are problems within the relationship, men tend to downplay issues or aren't able to communicate their feelings very properly and in a very healthy way. And so the fragmentation of the relationship already starts within, because we don't tell men, show us your feelings. Not just tell them. I mean, people tell them, but we don't show to them by an example. Listen to episode 12 to hear more about the kind of examples we set men in our pop culture, for example. And yes, we don't encourage men to talk about their feelings, and then issues arise, they don't know how to cope with them, they either bury them deep down, which can come across as neglect for their partner, or benevolence, or just everything's fine for the partner when it actually isn't, and then the relationship breaks down, and there's even more trauma because it could have been avoided, and the men might even blame themselves. In the research, in the studies that have been done, one of the findings was that men try to avoid conflict as much as possible, because that results in very difficult emotions they don't know or not taught to deal with, to resolve, and that can then lead to more isolation within the relationship and without outside the relationship. And once that relationship then ends, they're even more isolated, because not only is their network most often consistent of very close friends, but not if they're male friends, not really on a level that they share their feelings with those men. And even if they have female friends, still they're mostly the shoulder to lean on and not really the person to share their feelings with. And this is one of the reasons why men actually take so much longer to, and that is not just anecdotal, my own experiences, but science has looked into it, and how long is the coping period for men and women, and have found out that men take much longer to get over a breakup, even if it doesn't appear to be so long, but it takes them a long time. And one of the reasons is that the biggest confidant for men is their partner, because that's the person they feel like they can at least open up to a bit in as much as possible, or rely on. And it's not fair on their partner either. I'm not saying it's a good thing that is the case. But it is, because for a long time, when men grew up, one of their parents, most often the mother, was someone that was at least showing them, hey, feelings are okay to an extent. The fathers usually didn't. And now their partner takes over that role. And when that person is gone, then there's no one. They're completely alone in their mind and their feelings and in the way that society treats them. They have friendships that are not built on sharing difficult feelings, because those male friends they have are also not taught to deal with difficult emotions, not their own and not those of other people, which makes it hard to get over anything if you don't have a way to process it, and it leads you down a dangerous path. It can lead you down either in substance abuse, be it alcohol or other drugs. It can lead you down into obsessive behavior. For example, I know people that after breakup started to exercise in an insane amount, multiple times a day sometimes, just to work through the feelings, or to numb them, because when you are in actual physical pain because you've run 10 kilometers and then afterwards went on a heavy weightlifting session, and then also in the evening went for an hour of a swim, there's no space to have any other feelings other than the exhaustion and the pain that you feel. And the same goes for if you drink an excessive amount of alcohol or take any other drugs, or throw yourself into work 50, 60, 70 hours a week. There's no time to have anything else on your mind, or numbed by the substances you use. And apart from all of these coping mechanisms, another one is jumping from relationship to relationship, because it's new feelings. The bad feelings are then drowned out by happy feelings. Oh, this person, now I have someone else to love, or I have someone who finds me attractive, or I have very frequent sex, which obviously releases a lot of happy hormones, which can help to an extent, depending on how good these relationships then are, or they can just be an endless cycle of brief happiness followed by a long suffering because the next relationship didn't pan out as hoped. So this idea that men don't suffer or don't feel anything is not true. It's a guise created by our societal image we draw of men, of the stoic, problem-solving, logical, reasoned, tough tough man, rather than the man with deep and strong feelings that suffers a lot from a breakup. But how do we teach men? Or how do we teach anyone? Because one of the reasons why men suffer so much after a breakup is the inability to communicate their feelings, their problems in a healthy way, to set boundaries before in the relationship, or to deal with other people's boundaries in a relationship, and on and so forth. And how do we teach them? We can teach our children now. That's great, but there's lots of adults still walking around who's not had that kind of help or that kind of support system, and it's also not really there. Because if one looks into what kind of help is available for men dealing with any form of difficult relationship situations, as I've talked for in another episode, there's not much help for men in abusive relationships, but there's structural reasons for that. But there's also no help for men to just want to learn how to have a good relationship. What there is for men who are abusive, who are violent in a relationship, how to get out of those behaviors, how to, no longer be like that in a relationship, how longer not to be violent to their partners, which is very, very important. Don't get me wrong, this is very important, but it's also important to create help systems, to create workshops, to create network groups, communities that help men with the necessary toolkit to navigate not only healthy relationships, but also healthy breakups. And that's a goal that we should aim towards. Not only should we, anyone would benefit from that. Anyone who's had difficulty in relationships or with breakups would benefit strongly from having help groups or resources available to them that can show them how to deal with these emotions and how to deal with in relationships. Because lots of relationships are, not lots, but there are quite a few dysfunctional relationships out there who would probably, the participants of those relationships, benefit greatly from being, shown what kind of things they could do to improve that. But largely men are from very early on not taught how to form a proper relationship. And there's many, many reasons for that. Some of it I go into episodes that I've already done, some I will do in the future. But the point that I'm trying to get across with this particular episode is men, hi. If you're going through a breakup, it is really, really tough, but it will get better. So reach out to anyone you can. Almost anyone will have gone through what you're going through at some point in their life, and they will be able to sympathize with you and empathize with you. And yeah, dealing with breakups, one of the healthiest ways is to talk about them and to feel the pain, because it will go better, even if you don't think it will, and it is unbearable. It is bearable. But also men and everybody else, but mostly men, let's learn to communicate. Let's learn to have a healthy relationship. And if you are a relationship expert out there, or if you are a social worker, psychologist, counselors, whatever, if you have tools that work and help men get better and help men be good at communicating or at having healthy relationships, show them to them. Tell me and I'll share them, or share them yourself. But let's create resources for people to have healthy relationships, and not just after something really, really terrible happened. Let's do some preemptive work instead of after the effect, because I think there would be a very, very, very big group of people that will benefit from it. and in a way that is supportive rather than telling them. I've seen this person on Instagram, and I'm sorry, I have to rant here because I found it just frustrating. This person on internet who is a very big person in a relationship counseling, who's written books and tours and stuff, and I'm sure has helped many people. But some things they say I find very off-putting. For example, they said that if you are in a relationship and one of the things that you do together is watching TV, then you're not in a good relationship, which is such a blanket statement that makes no sense. And maybe I misunderstood that. Maybe it was one of those brief edited and they said something before and afterwards, but that's not true. If you have a relationship where you enjoy watching TV together and because you interact with each other, then there's nothing wrong with that. And your relationship is your relationship, and if you're communicating within that relationship and are happy or content and moving in a direction that both of you are, and have values that you share and move in a direction that both of you are, good with going, then whatever you do is good. Nobody gets hurt. Good on you. You don't need someone to shame you for the way you lead your relationship. Rather, we need the resources to help people create these healthy relationships. And as I say at the beginning of every episode, I am not a mental health professional. I am not a social worker. I am not anyone that has these resources other than my own experience, which I'm happy to share with you. But it only works for me. I don't know if they work for other people. I don't have any evidence, but I'm willing to look into it more and share whatever I can. But if anyone's out there who has, actual solid advice that goes along those lines, please reach out. Please share that. Make these resources available. That would be great. Let's have communities that help us to become better at relationships, which are the most important things in our life. I mean, we are social beings, and even though I'm an introverted person, I'm very happy being alone. I also enjoy having relationships, and it took me a while to be able to communicate that to the people around me. Hey, I love you all, but please sometimes just leave me alone. It doesn't mean I don't love you. That just means that I'm drawing a healthy boundary here that I need for me to be able to deal with the overstimulation of too many people and feelings around. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with my love for you or how much I care for you. It's all about me. But for a long time in my life, I wasn't able to communicate that, which, obviously, if you are in a relationship with someone and you just want to be alone, and you don't communicate that the reason for that is you and the way you cope with it, but just leave me alone right now. I just need to be alone. It just doesn't sound good for the other person. It took me a while to realize that. But I did. And I'm not perfect still. I still screw up and sometimes recognize too late that I need some time for me, and then already my brain is overwhelmed and all that comes out is something not nice. So there's still work for me to do, a lot. But I have the luck of having had some help along the way, and I hope I can be of some help to you, and also that other people out there who hopefully listen and or watch this have as well. So I would be very happy to hear from you, whether you have any resources or experience, or just your own life experience and how you've dealt with breakups or feel are good for healthy relationships. Please reach out. There's an anonymous contact form on the website, men-tell-health.com, tell, T-E-L-L. You can email me at tim@men-tell-health.com. Find me on Instagram, MenTell Health _podcast. You can find me on YouTube, MenTell Health Podcast. If you're already on YouTube, you can just comment below. Please rate and share this podcast. It helps a lot. If you're on YouTube, give it a like, activate the bell, and this is it for this week. As always, I hear and I see you, and I hope you hear and or see me again next week. Goodbye.